Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of Mariner of Spirit. I'm Greg, I'm your host, and as we traditionally do when we start each show, we usually go ahead and talk about a few things. And number one, we usually talk about things or organizations that we support. And I'm constantly adding, and I'm finding out that there's ones that aren't going to be doing that much anymore. Particularly one of them, number one would be Lost Limbs with Mike Couch from the Rose Hotel, and this is it for him. He's stepped down on his organization on Lost Limbs, and so we won't be supporting that any longer. Number two, I'm waiting to go ahead and get an opportunity to talk to another particular person, Tim Miley, who is a great person that I know that is part of what he created in Potographs, and Potographs is was just started when he lost his pooch, and he decided that it was he didn't know how he was going to handle that, and things were going rotten, and he finally decided that he needed to go forward, and he had a picture of himself and his pooch, and he made copies of it and went to one of the paracons and actually sold pictures of his pooch and himself, and started to raise money for animal shelters and animal care and things like that. And it took off, and now he's at a junction where he may continue and he may not. Uh, I still support him 100%. I think he's a great guy. He's done some fantastic uh, cons conferences across our area here, especially where he has come up. He has a great deal of great friends in the paranormal community, and he's done an outstanding job of going ahead and putting them on. I've been to two of them, and he's just great. Out of all the people that I met in the community, I want to keep him way up at the top of the list. The other one is PKC, Paranormal Kicks Cancer, and that's Chris Gaskowski and Alex Wilkinson from down in Florida, and they now are in Florida, and that's where they do most of their cons. I heard that a couple of weeks ago. I haven't talked to them for about a year, but they do a tremendous job on going ahead and putting together paranormal events, and they use all the funds that are raised from that for cancer research. So, and then the last one is the Jessica Petrie Foundation. She's the daughter of Howard Petrie, and Howard is with the I can't think of the I'm going to get shot for this one. He's with the other pit. Boy, that's a I have a brain fart. Anyway, she died. He went ahead and set up a foundation, and it's a resource for expectant mothers and families with pregnant women that have mental illness. And he's been doing that for the last 2 years. And he's with United Paranormal. I want to say it is. I don't know why I forgot that, but that's one of those things that happens occasionally. So, and then I would go ahead and I would want to mention authors. And I might be forgetting somebody in this list tonight, but I hope I didn't. But I would start out with Ron Iacovetti, Lynn Monet, Dr. Rebecca Foster, Bruce Holliday, Rex Nielsen, Todd Bates, and Heatherly Langdon. And that's pretty much it for right now. I hope I didn't forget anything else. And I know that, I watch the shows and I support who we're talking about. You got Paralinks and Paralinks is one of them. Paralanx is another one. Used to be UPI, I want to say. Uh, a lot of the groups across the country are involved in all those different groups. So, but let's get on with it because we already spent a few too many minutes on talking about uh, other things when we should be concentrating on the gentleman we have tonight. Um, I have yet to have met him in person. He is a unbelievable man in the respect of where he's been, what he's done, what he's doing, and where he's going. And he is the director. Some people call him the founder of the Warren Legacy Foundation. He's an outstanding person, and it's a pleasure to have him on here tonight. And that is Chris McKinnell, director of the Warren Legacy Foundation. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you, Rick. Those were very kind words, and I certainly don't deserve them. How you doing tonight?
No, you know what? It makes us run. You know what I mean? If you use it for fuel to carry you, and that's what I think it's about. Is when you're working on something as hard as you've been working on, not only that or how you grew up, and the things you did as a young man, it's very, very, very neat. I understand that, well, why don't you, because I'm not going to talk anymore. What about you going ahead and telling everybody about how you started and, your grandparents and everything that's been going on?
Sure, happily. And first, I want to apologize for missing my first interview with you. As you're aware, I was dealing with a spiritual attack that had me crippled for about 3 months, and I was electrocuted. My grandmother, Lorraine Warren, came back and warned 6 different people, 4 of them on the same night, that I was under spiritual attack and I needed to take care of it. It's, I have no problem with spirits. I believe, of course, I talk to them. I'm a medium. But I have problems with magic and curses. They offend me. They offend my sensibilities. And so I think this was a wonderful learning opportunity for me. It made me realize that for me, I have to deal with everything as though it were quantum physics, directed energy, etc. But that's very intellectual. And to actually feel it was really important. And to deal with it magically myself was rather important. So it worked. And as soon as I did 2 different types of ritual cleansings, I was no longer crippled. All of the problems that we were having in the home immediately disappeared. I mean, immediately. It was extraordinary. It was a fantastic opportunity for me. So again, I apologize for having missed our first interview.
But go ahead.
I was going to say, but to answer, to give the information you were asking me about, yeah, I'm Chris McKinnell. I'm the director of the Warren Legacy Foundation for Paranormal Research. We carry on the work of my grandparents, Ed and Lorraine Warren, around the world. We've got well over 100 people all over the world who help people for free and anonymously. Our clients always come first. This is an organization that my grandmother and I started together after the first movie got started. We wanted to expand their mission around the world. And because I have been lucky enough to live in over 90 places around the world, I had the experience. Also, I have dealt with managing volunteers in many jobs. So I had the experience and I wanted to take it and use it to really make an impact here. I've been doing this. Well, I first started going on lecture tours and seeing my grandparents do some work when I was 14 years old. Of course, I also grew up seeing the talk shows and the newspaper articles and everything, so I was always exposed to it, plus the museum, which I was locked in when I was 2 years old, or maybe 3. But yeah, that was a jarring experience. And I gotta say, I've been very lucky. You know, I went on my first case when I was 16. It was an over-the-top poltergeist case. And from then on, I knew that this was something I really needed to understand better, and it's how I spent my life.
That's really amazing. I know there were things that times that I heard you mention certain instances on investigations that dealt with your grandfather, and not putting everything you said aside, you know, how was he as a man?
He had a great sense of humor. He was a practical joker. Um, he had a very strong ego, very strong sense of himself. And we did clash, to be honest. Uh, it took him a long time to learn new ways of thinking about things. But he did. Don't get me wrong. When people see interviews from the 70s and 80s that they've done, they're only seeing a snapshot in time. They're not really seeing who he became by the 90s. Um, yeah, this is a field of research. It's not a religion, and we have to adapt with new evidence and with new experiences.
I know you the work you've been doing and the people that you surrounded yourself with in the Warren Legacy Foundation. There's a lot of great people in there.
Yeah,
And it sort of feeds off of all the principles that you set up in the very beginning, which is something that a lot of organizations don't have.
which is really one of the main reasons I do this, is because it is such a Wild West attitude out there. Everybody wants to get their clicks and likes and their 5 minutes of fame, and they don't care who they hurt. They don't, they all want to be the next giant TV star, and that's not us. We're there to minimize fear. We're there to educate. We're there to help people, not to prey on people. I, I'll be honest with you. I'm not a huge fan of the paranormal. I don't do this because I love it. I do it because it's necessary.
Okay, that's fair enough. There's a lot of people that wouldn't say that, and
Okay.
you're standing out for saying it. Where I have mixed emotions. I am more on the fact that I agree with you as far as the help idea is concerned, more than I want to go and even come close to a camera.
Hmm. Yeah.
But there's people that understand that is necessary for a lot of the people in the community that don't understand certain things. And if it's legit on the film, or like what's going on with this right now with this global ghost hunt that guys have been recording on, I friends of mine we're down in New Orleans. And what I do is ITC, so instrumental transcommunication. I do it a lot. I do it a real lot. I do more Estes than I want to. And I've been doing that for quite a few years now. And it's very interesting work, but there's times when you can tell just by what's going on in your head besides the voice that it's not something you need to pursue and you need to back out.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
I think that that's exactly the same thing you're saying in the
yeah.
respect of,
I'm not trying to call anyone out. I'm not.
no,
Don't
no,
get me wrong. There's something valuable about being known. That's why I do these interviews. I want people to know we're out there to help, and it's why I did that Netflix documentary that's on right now. Devil on Trial? Yeah, The Devil on Trial. Because I'm trying to get people to know that we're here. Sadly, even though the whole purpose of my doing that was to promote the foundation, they didn't mention the foundation once, which really bugged me.
well, that's too bad.
Yeah.
I mean, once again, when you do talk about the people that are around you, there's people that carried that in the way things were put together. That was very, very good. I know that there isn't a lot of things that are left untouched as far as knowledge is concerned or information in the foundation. And I'm like I'm yet in the beginning because I'm doing so much. It's hard to go ahead and then go back in, and grab pages, so many pages and try to go ahead and catch up with a lot of the the, the notices or the columns of things that are said and how it comes across. Because there's different ways of looking at things too, and that's why I think the foundation is so good because you have so many minds.
Yeah. Our strength is in our diversity. Honestly, I'm a terrible manager. I will not take credit for how wonderful the foundation is. We have amazing people who have done extraordinary work to build this foundation up, to make it the institution it really is. It is extraordinary. And I am so proud of them. They are the heart and soul. I'm just a figurehead, to be honest.
So that's that part there. The things that I was or the organizations or the groups that I was trying to mention before that I had the brain fart about. You got Paralinks and Parapost and places like that, and it seems that some of those too have not a tendency. They have the knowledge behind them to carry them through their programming. And if they don't have something on there that is knowledge, knowledge is forefront, then, a lot of times you won't see too many of the other ones where they're basically paranormal comedy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we've got our program, the YouTube channel, The Warren Files. And I think what I love about that is it used to just be me with one guest or me with a bunch of guests. Now I'm barely on it, and it's always a rotating group of people talking about all sorts of subject matter, and it is information based. It's not sensational. We're not there trying to scare people. Even when we talk about things like Amityville or Annabelle or what have you, we're giving you the story, the truth. There's no hyperbole there. There's no building it up or anything. It's real.
When I was down in the Keys, I went ahead and ran into Robert. And this is the second time I've been with Robert. And this time I was actually with him by myself. There wasn't anybody else in the whole corridor where he happens to be in the case. And I understand that this is something that I'm not in the position to want to play with.
Mm. You're of course talking about Robert Vidal for anybody who doesn't know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Robert Vidal, and it's the utmost in respect.
Mm-hmm.
And you ask the questions, and you ask him permission to do this, or take a picture, or ask a question, or anything like that. And I walked away, and everything was fine. And I think the things that happened with Annabelle too. Now, were you ever involved with Annabelle?
Well, I grew up with Annabelle. Annabelle has been with my family since I was about 3 years old, 3 or 4. So yeah, yeah, not my favorite thing, to be quite honest. It's certainly not the only haunted doll that we've had to deal with. It fascinates me that dolls seem to be probably the only thing that I can think of that we invest so much love and energy into that they become such a focal point for hauntings. What else is there that you can think of that a spirit or perhaps just a thought form can manifest through? What else do we pour our hearts into like we do with a doll?
I think the only guy that ever tried to really do that was Stephen King, wasn't it?
Actually, we've got some guys doing an experiment right now in England. It's the Annabelle Project, and they're working with people to try. Have you ever heard of the Philip experiment?
No.
Okay, this was a project several decades ago where friends would meet and talk about their fictitious friend Philip, completely fictitious, and over time they then started to try to contact their fictitious friend Philip. And they were able to actually do that. They created this thought form that took on a life of its own. And they're trying to do this same experiment now in England with a Raggedy Ann doll.
Now, is there another word for that?
Oh, there are several. Tulpa, egregore, thought form. But basically what it is a spirit created with living human energy that takes on a life of its own. When it's done intentionally, then like when it's called an egregore, it has a specific purpose and a timestamp, basically. Do this task and then dissipate. But when it's done unintentionally, when it's done by accident, you can get it out of control and it becomes something like a poltergeist, where it has no limits. It takes on a life of its own and it becomes truly dangerous. And that's what I think Annabelle is actually. I don't think Annabelle is demonic. I think Annabelle is a thought form that they invested too much love into when it started to take on life, and they got this bizarre story from a medium who totally screwed it up and said it was a child who had been killed in front of their house and was only looking, for somebody to love them. Once they started really attaching to it and it started moving around the house, leaving messages for them, they got creeped out and they started feeding it negative energy. And that's when the doll started becoming a terror and dangerous.
I know the first one you mentioned, Topa.
Mm-hmm.
There's a gentleman by the name of Dr. Michael Lynch.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you're familiar with him.
No, I don't actually follow the paranormal community.
But he came up with a story of a group of people that were at some sort of group meeting or things where they created one, but they didn't have the timestamp on it. so that at the end they realized that it wasn't going to dissipate.
Mm-hmm.
So they had to try to figure out how to get it to extinguish it.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the whole story, and it was like, holy crap! I didn't
Yeah.
think that's not something you want to go ahead and do.
No, it's a very dangerous thing. I mean, tulpas are a Tibetan Buddhist idea. The monks, the really good ones, obviously, can create like a full-bodied tiger in the hallways to scare the young monks who are making noise and then dissipate it. But when it's out of control, yeah, you've got to take steps. If spirits will follow our rules, but if we don't set any rules, they have no rules.
So, with what you're doing now, how does that affect you?
You mean
As far as your situation that you had that you talked about in the very beginning tonight, do you think that was something that was following you?
there are two possibilities. One, it was a magic user that I upset because this was going on for about 3 months. It intensified after I dealt with a haunted doll that had belonged to another member of the foundation. She had grown very attached to the doll. She didn't really understand what she was dealing with. And then we realized, yeah, this is something that maybe there had been a positive energy in it, but there was also an incredibly intense negative energy. And I grounded it. I used blessed items, and then I left it in my hotel room for 2 nights until she was able to take it out and dispose of it properly by burying it in consecrated ground far from any home. And I think I also picked up an attachment there. So I was dealing with two things. I was lucky enough, I used very typical Christian house cleansing for the home that I'm in, but I also used a voodoo um, bath to cleanse my attachment, to break the energy. I prayed over it with Psalm 23, and you know, I made sure that my intentions were extremely clear because that's very, very important. You have to believe that what you're doing will work, otherwise it doesn't work. Um, as I said, I've lived all over the world. And what I have found in my studies is that all religions, all faiths have different ways of dealing with the spirit world. And they all work. I don't think God cares what your religion is. God just cares that you're calling on God. You know, and as long as you're doing that, and as long as you're very clear in your faith and in your intention, then you can take care of it. Rituals are there to focus those other two aspects, your faith and your intention.
I know when you brought that up, or originally when you were telling us, everybody that's here, about what happened, and that we all know, I know that you had to handle it
Mm-hmm.
because there wasn't anybody there besides you, I
Right.
don't think, to handle it.
No, I'm in Paraguay.
Yeah.
Uh, don't have anybody here.
So, that sort of complicated it, didn't it?
It did, yeah, especially because I didn't want to believe what I was dealing with. I really, really, I was extremely hesitant, but I was having personality changes. I may have been under oppression with this as well. And it was getting worse progressively. As I said, I was actually electrocuted, ended up in the hospital. Half the stuff in my home broke. It really got bad. But the moment I did these cleansings, everything was fine, perfectly fine. I went from being crippled and unable to walk to going everywhere I want to go and having no problem at all.
Do you think there's a difference, or there has to be a combination when you're dealing in the field of the light and the dark at the same time?
I think that there's a purpose to darkness. It's yin and yang, yeah, absolutely. I think without evil, without something for us to struggle against, we don't grow. If we lived in an absolutely perfect world, we would have zero reasons to progress at all. We'd stay infants. But infants have to overcome adversity, which is why they continue to grow. They struggle. They want to move. They want to, be out there, and they've got to deal with the fact that they're hungry or they're crying, and those are all difficulties for them that they need. And I think that those challenges are very important. Honestly, I think that our problems are gifts, and we get the gift when we solve the problem. That's the lesson that we're supposed to learn. The problem is too many people get so fixated on their problems that they keep repeating those problems again and again because they're not learning from them.
Do you think that that's common in what we do?
Of course it is. Of course it is. And you see that in basic psychology. There are people who have a victim mentality, and they will always expose themselves to victimizers, for instance. Just an example. Again and again and again. It's a pattern until they learn how to break it. When we deal with the paranormal, we always look for those underlying issues that somebody has that make them vulnerable to the paranormal, and we deal with that as well. We have a holistic approach. Whether or not it's mental illness or physical disability or trauma or domestic violence or whatever might be the issue in the home, we have to deal with that as well. Otherwise, whatever we do paranormally is going to be temporary because the thing will come back.
Okay, my next question, and excuse me if I come across a little differently on this one. Have you changed face as far as how you are going to continue to travel to foreign countries as far as doing it by yourselves concerned?
Well, I'm currently traveling with a friend of mine,
Okay.
which
Okay.
is nice. She's a good friend. We're just friends, but she's a good friend. She's been with me since Peru, then Colombia, now Paraguay. Next week, we'll go to Brazil together, and then back to Colombia, where I hope to start a spiritual retreat and paranormal education center. It's something that's a dream of mine, and Colombia is my favorite place in the entire world. So I'm hoping to establish that in this beautiful little town called Jardín de Antioquia. It is paradise there. It really is. It's a beautiful, peaceful, safe place, and I'm excited for that. I admit I have loved traveling the world. I really have. It has been a privilege, but I'm ready to settle down for the first time in my life.
The reason I brought that up was just because of the things that happened to you and being by yourself. I didn't know that maybe she was there with you.
Yeah,
Uh, how did it affect her?
yeah. She was very worried, very worried. I was having tremors. It was getting pretty bad. I was even thinking maybe I had Parkinson's. My sister's got Parkinson's, so I was wondering. But honestly, the moment it stopped, so did the tremors, so did everything. Um, she was worried because she was seeing the personality changes in me. Obviously, she was terrified when I was electrocuted. Um, and ended up in the hospital.
Okay, and and I think that we'll change the subject a little bit because
Sure.
it's I'm like beating a dead horse, which is wrong. When you started out, when you were a young man, I believe you're in the Peace Corps.
Right.
Did that sort of really set you for the pursuits that you were going to go about, the journey you were going to go on?
Absolutely. It was, I mean, I started learning about alternate religions when I was 10 years old. I was always fascinated. But my time in Mali, which at the time was the poorest country in the world under a military dictatorship, it taught me so much. Taught me so much about what's important in life. I mean, I was in a mud hut for 2 years without electricity, without running water. I had a 15-year-old girl that would get water from the well for me and would cook one meal a day for me and do my laundry and clean the house. And I paid her $15 a month, which in a country where the average income was $100 a year, she was bringing home a great deal of money to her family. But most of the time I cooked too because I just could not handle the food. Um, but the generosity of the people, the kindness of the people was so humbling to see. They understood what was important, that we survive through cooperation, through taking care of one another. And that set me on this course. Yes.
I know when I could you give us an example of a typical day when you started out like that? What would go
In
on?
the Peace Corps. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you have to understand, I was on the edge of the Sahara. So you woke up, it could be anywhere from 110 to 125 degrees in the morning, and it could get as high as 140. I remember at Christmas time, we had a drop in temperature, got down to 75, and all of the Malians were wearing parkas and mittens and scarves. They were freezing. I was chilly too by that point. I was not used to that. You know, I would send her to the local baker where we can get these little breads, and I had jelly, and butter. Those things were available. You could almost never get meat. Never. You could get heart, lung. Well, you can get lung, stomach, entrails, things like that. Bone. And I would use those to flavor sauces and then give the meat to her. Well, the bits, because those are things that she would never be able to get in her own home. And then I would work with a local brush nurse. He was responsible. A brush nurse is a medical professional who has limited medical knowledge, but he was the only man in our 84 village region responsible for 10,000 people. And I would work with him. I would also teach people how to make mud wood stoves, because the women would go out looking for wood up to 8 hours a day because they weren't allowed to take living wood because there was so little of it. And it could take forever to find fuel for your fire. So we had learned in the Peace Corps how to make these mud wood stoves that would fit individual pots, concentrate the heat, and use very little fuel. And that was one of the things I was teaching. I would also work with visiting doctors, going from village to village. And of course, I had 84 different villages I had to visit. So I spent a lot of time on my motorcycle going from place to place.
And you stay a little cooler on the motorcycle.
Yeah, and it was fun going across the desert on a bike. That was a blast. Yeah.
And when you said you were in a mud hut, it isn't that would be like you had your own you were living in your own oven.
Oh yeah, yeah. And with fire ants right next to the bed, which
Oh,
really
really?
just sucked. Yeah.
I only ran into those one time when it was in Alabama, and I crawled underneath this trailer that I was renting to try to get, and I happened to go and just brush the edge of it, and I got hit about 10 times, and I came running out of there, rolling out, and it was like, what in heaven's name?
Oh,
And
they are
then
the worst, aren't they? Oh
yeah, they're not any fun at all.
no. I was squirting toothpaste in the cracks of the floor, anything to keep them out. Luckily, the Peace Corps did pay for a concrete floor, uh, so that I only had cracks around the edges where the walls came down that I had to fill in with toothpaste every once in a while to keep them from getting to me.
So was that the worst? Was the fire ants or?
Oh no, no. It was very unhealthy there. There used to be an old campaign about the Peace Corps, the toughest job you'll ever love. It was. If you got the tiniest scratch, there were no bathrooms like we think of. There was a hole in the ground that you squatted over, and that was it. Uh, at night, you'd uncover that. It was called a nyegin, and you'd uncover that hole, and thousands of cockroaches would come flying out, or crawling out. And I'll be honest with you, it's probably the only thing I still react to with the willies. I just hate those things, just ugh. And so the feces would dry, and it was in the air, it was everywhere. So if you got a scratch, it opened up and it became an infection. Hydrogen peroxide was my friend. I was constantly pouring it into my wounds, and they still would open up. Um, I had malaria. I had amoebic dysentery. I, when I had malaria, I had to get to a missionary that was about 7 miles away, and to get help. And I was on my motorcycle and I went around a sand dune and I hit one of the few trees in the Sahara Desert. So by the time I got there, the guy says, "Well, it looks like you got a broken arm and malaria and all of these other open sores on your body and everything else. We'll get you to medical aid in about 2 days." Oh, okay.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
unbelievable.
yeah. I was young, thank God. So,
I had a cousin that did that too, but he
what
was in.
country?
Pardon me?
Which country was he in?
He was in India.
Oh, wow. I love India. I've got family there. My goddaughter's there. My adopted daughter's there. Good people.
They are very good people. But I wanted to ask that because it was like I knew that from the stories I heard, except for the fact when he came home, he was really morally he was screwed up physically.
Yeah,
You
it was.
know, and
I came back actually healthier. I had lost a huge amount of weight. I was blonde, first time in my life. It was something else, but it was an experience. It really was.
so now, what's in your future now with the
Well, like I said,
organization?
next week I'll be in Brazil. I'm going to be doing a convention there in Sao Paulo, and lots of interviews. Um, After that, I'm going to spend a couple of months there in a little town called Florianopolis, and then return to Colombia. I'm working on my autobiography. I've got a lot to share, far too much probably. Uh, I'm sure the editors will. chop away, a couple of hundred pages. Uh, but I learned a lot in my life. And if I can share what I've learned so that people don't make the same mistakes, then I think it's worth it.
I know when I talked about authors, that's why I said what I said, because I figured that if you didn't already have it ready to go, it was coming down the road.
Yeah, give me another 6 months, and I'm not sure how to sell it. I mean, I've got to find a publisher. This is all new to me. Uh, I'm not a marketing genius by any stretch of the imagination, but I've already got 50 pages done. I figure, and I've only made it to college, so we're looking at a very, very long book.
So there could be a series of books.
I suppose, yeah. I mean, the truth is, my time in Korea, my time in Thailand, Nepal, uh, Europe, the Middle East, Jerusalem during the Second Intifada, which was the Second Palestinian Uprising, uh, Egypt, all of my travels in Central and South America, which, for anybody who's hesitant to come down here, I got to tell you, if you believe the crap that we're taught in the United States about Latin America, which I did, I never wanted to come here. I was so wrong. This is the most vibrant continent, the most wonderful set of histories and cultures, and it is amazing and diverse and beautiful. I cannot talk it up enough.
Where were you? Where were you in Southeast Asia? Just Thailand?
Yeah. I mean, I visited Burma, but very, very briefly. Um, I spent 2 years in Thailand. My son was born in Thailand. He's half Thai.
Where did you live there?
Almost exclusively in Bangkok. Although I did get around. I was lucky. I was teaching there, so I would travel with my students or just on my own when I was free. And Thailand's fantastic. Again, another beautiful country. The people are very friendly. Uh, and the food, if you like spicy food, it's the best. You'll love it.
My godfather taught at the University of Bangkok. I believe that's what it was called.
Yep.
I was there. I was stationed there and did hops into Vietnam during the war.
Mm-hmm.
But I was able to move off base. I was next to Utapao, which was the B-52 base.
Okay.
In sort of central southern Thailand.
Okay.
And then I had a hooch that I secured down in Pattaya Beach.
Oh, okay. That must have been a wild time back then.
And that was just where the Just Mag compound was. But I had the hooch that was the other side of town, and that was that little town down there of Pattaya. That end of Pattaya Beach became what we all know as Sin City.
Yeah, today it is, and it certainly was back in the '90s. I actually never went there, but I know all about Pattaya.
I was the other side of it, so I was at the base of the mountain that had the reclining Buddha on it.
Oh, okay. There are a lot of those. There are a lot of reclining Buddhas.
Well, this one, we were in a compound that had what you would call they had the Oriental type of roofs on them with the wings that would come up, and it was
the temples.
Yeah, but this was a hooch.
Okay.
This is where we lived, or where I lived, and it would have one bedroom and like a basic living room, and then there was a deck outside, and you would had a bridge that went across the Clong. And the Clong was the water that would come in off the ocean.
Yeah.
Because that's how close I was to the ocean. And
I remember Clogs.
And you would at night in the morning you would hear the chanting of the Buddhist monks from up on top of the temple, and then you'd hear that gong or whatever that was that they would do.
Yep. And then every morning they go out and they make their collections. They collect food, and that's beautiful because whatever they collect, they'll eat, of course, but whatever's left over, they give to the poor. They open up the temple to everybody who wants to eat. And I love that.
It was such a big difference between there and Vietnam.
Oh, yeah. I would imagine.
You know, at that time period, it was pretty crazy. But now,
I was right there on the where the three countries, Laos and Burma,
you got Cambodia there.
Yeah, I was right there, and I was up in Chiang Mai and Chiang Rai, and yeah.
I had a hooch girl who came from Chiang Mai, and I paid her $5 a month. And there wasn't anything. The first couple of days that I would come back after I got off duty, and I'd have to take a bus down, and there were probably about 30 of us that lived down there, and I was with officers. I was one of the only enlisted men down there, and I would get home and I would walk in and I'd go, where the heck where's my underwear? Where are my boots? Where are my pants? And it would all be in, how they had those big dresser type things that opened up, armoires or whatever you want to call them. And all the stuff would be polished and pressed, and I'm going, how the heck is she doing this kind of stuff?
Yeah.
And her name was C, and she lived up the hill, halfway between me and where the top of the mountain was. And that's all I remember about her.
Yeah. Yeah, they all have nicknames, and the women often have nicknames that mean little one or small. My wife's name was Goy. Her real name was Manirat. Actually, her real name was Manirat Punsabat. As you remember, Thai names can be incredibly long, so the nicknames are necessary.
It was unbelievable. Yeah. It was a great experience. Parts of it were, and that was the part that was. But so now, when I said that to you earlier about what you planned on doing in this next chapter, are you going to continue to live in South America? Do you have any intention?
I'm becoming a permanent resident of Colombia. Once I am, I get free health care. I can live there. I can't afford to live in the United States. I'm on Social Security. I couldn't afford it even if I wanted to live there. And I don't, to be quite honest. I love Colombia. I love the people. I love everything about it. It is a vibrant, beautiful place. The cultures are extraordinary. It's incredibly varied. I mean, I've been lucky enough to study. I spent 10 days with the Kogi people. They're a native people in the jungle and up in the mountains, and that was amazing. And I've been to Cartagena, and I got to visit with the Palenqueras, which are descendants of freed and escaped slaves that have maintained some semblance of an African culture in their region. They've got their own region called Palenque. And it was like going home to Mali. It was extraordinary. And each of these peoples, and there are so many different groups, have their own cultures, their own histories. Even the basic, if you want to call them that, Colombians have overcome such extraordinary adversity. with all the narco history and FARC, which was a rebel army that was operating up until about 7 years ago.
Yeah.
But today, because they're free, because they're at peace, they are the happiest people. And if you put on music in the city street, people will start dancing. It is extraordinary. They just start dancing right there. It's like, dang, I wish I had that in my blood.
That's really great.
Yeah.
You
It
seem,
fills me with joy every time I'm there.
you seem to be at a place that you're very happy.
I am. Yeah. I've overcome tremendous adversity. I was in a wheelchair for 10 years on oxygen. I weighed 250 pounds more than I do today. I couldn't take care of myself. I had to have nurses coming in 65 hours a week to take care of me. It was ridiculous. And I've turned my life around. I am loving every moment of my life. And I'm so appreciative of all the things I've been through, because without it, I don't think I could possibly be as happy as I am. I know these times won't last. I know that, life is made up of many, many chapters, and that's fine. I take the good and the bad as it comes. I just went through 3 months that were hell, and I'm grateful for it. It gives me more experience to help other people, and that's really what's more important to me.
Do you think, not to go backwards again, but just to say this, that have you prepared yourself, or have you thought to take a different route compared to what just happened to you?
Oh, absolutely. I've strengthened my protections, and I'm going to be more proactive when the next attack comes. Don't get me wrong, I have had so many things happen to me. I've had the gas turn on my stove 3 nights in a row without a flame. I've had the car brakes go out after I broke a curse on a family, and I smashed into a car. Um, I've 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 been burned. I've been stabbed. I've been thrown across the room. Uh, I was even levitated over some stairs in the case that's known as the Haunted, or the Schmerl case in West Pittston, Pennsylvania. Um, I had things happen to me in the case that became known as The Haunting in Connecticut.
Okay.
Terrible movie, by the way. Hell, the book is terrible too. In a Dark Place. Don't forget it. But the case was real. That was my case. And there's a price you pay for doing this work. It is not easy. It should never be thought of as a hobby. You're there either to help people, you're there to do God's work, or you shouldn't be there at all, because you're dealing with people's lives.
Right.
The case, there is an actual case that's incredibly loosely based on the Nun, which is the Maurice Theriault case. The only part of the Nun that's true is in the credits at the end. And that's where you see the exorcism of Maurice Theriault. And my grandfather had his heart attack during that exorcism. I was there. I was the guy between the bishop and Maurice, as Maurice is under possession, with tears of blood coming down his face, drooling blood, eyes taking on slits like a snake. And that was a horrendous case. Absolutely horrendous. People died
Right.
in that case.
Well, there's a reason for everything that happens.
Mm-hmm.
And when we look at it with the idea that we still love God, we have a way out.
Yeah. I think the thing that people need to understand is there's a balance between there's a reason for everything that happens and the fact that we have free will. And it's up to us to learn what that reason is. It isn't just there because we need to get the lesson. We need to understand that lesson, or it will be repeated again and again and again in one form or another until we get it right. You know, if God's trying to teach you something, He's not going to give up just because you're dense and can't get it through your thick skull. Believe me, I know, because I've been hit with the same lesson too many times in my life.
You're not the Lone Ranger.
No. I'm not a superhero. I'm just a guy who's made a lot of mistakes.
It's you know, there's two of us here right now. But the only thing I can add to what I've been saying, and not that I've made any real sense about it, is that I hope that you have many years in Bolivia of happiness.
Colombia, but thank you very much.
Colombia. So I was close, wasn't I?
No, Bolivia is, I think, next to Peru. It's pretty far away. I'm probably closer to Bolivia right now, actually. I'm way down in Paraguay, which is
that's right,
far away. Paraguay is interesting. It's the most European South American country I've been in. It's very safe, rather boring, to be honest. But the food's great, and it's inexpensive. If you're here in the wintertime, which of course is your summer, I mean, the weather can be really nice. Right now, though, it's 100 to 105 degrees daily.
So you're going to be going back shortly, or where are you at right now?
Well, I'm in Paraguay. I'm in Asuncion.
You're in Paraguay.
Yeah, and I can't go back to Colombia until January 2nd. Because I have to wait for the year to change so I can get my next 6 months, and in that time I'll get my permanent residency, and then I can stay as long as I want.
So you're talking visas now, right?
Not exactly, but similar, yeah. I don't need a visa to enter. I just am I'm limited to 6 months a year in Colombia, which is not a problem. I don't mind spending 2 months in Brazil.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you very much, Greg. It's been good to be here.
I'm glad we finally got to it, and I'm sure that down the road here we'll have another chat, if that's okay with you.
And just, if I may, for anybody who does need help, I know we didn't really get into this too much.
Okay.
Please contact us at the WarrenLegacyFoundation.com. There's a contact us link. Please fill out the Google form, and we'll be more than happy to help you. Remember, our services are free, and they're anonymous. We will never, ever expose you to the public.
Thank you. I wanted to save that for the boss.
Well, when we find the boss, I'll ask him to do it.
Well, I think you are the boss.
No. We have 3 managers and a whole bunch of directors. They're the bosses.
I just put that out there just for a little giggle,
Yeah, I know. Everybody wants to come in the boss. You know how I feel about that.
Okay. Thank you very much. And if you want to hang around, we'll have a little chat while we shut everything down. It's been a pleasure having you. It really has. And I hope it's opened up a lot of eyes for a lot of people that are watching, and will be watching in the next couple of days. So thanks a lot, everybody. As we normally do, though, before I end, I want to go ahead and just go down and mention everybody that's been in the chat. We got Azriana Trudel. We got Anthony Cabellos. We have Nancy Noonan Kelly. We have Jenny Sullivan Signasi from Ireland. We have Tracy Rizzo. We have Kristen Johnson. We have, come on, get your fingers working.
Rachel Van Willard?
Yes, Rachel's here. Is she from the foundation?
No, I just saw the name, though.
And Nancy again, Noonan Kelly. So, everybody, thank you very much. And with that, we're going to say goodnight. This is my last one till the 7th of November because we're heading to Seattle. So have a great time. You guys all enjoy, and we'll see you when we get back for another episode of Mariner Spirit. Thank you very much. You guys have a great weekend. Good night.
Good night, all.
Good night.